The title of my participation is Building Trust, Cross-Cultural Understanding and Communication, Experiences in a Multicultural Classroom. I would like to share with you some of my experiences working in the international relations field for the last 20 years. When I became a full-time academic, I tried to apply all this professional experience in international teams to my classes. Specifically, I've been focused on building trust among students when I have been teaching courses on management, leadership, and negotiation, usually in international business programs and with groups of 11, 12 nationalities average. Firstly, let's define what cultural distance is. When we talk about cultural distance, we describe the measurement of the difference between the values, the attitudes, the beliefs, the behaviors among people coming from different cultures. All of us grow up in different environments, with different languages, with different traditions, with different beliefs, with different norms. And besides, we, as human beings, are ethnocentrics. We think the way we do things, our schedules and our lifestyle, is the right way of doing things. So we, in our culture, do the things correctly, in the right way. And the rest of cultures, the rest of the world, are wrong. Consequently, we analyze and evaluate other cultures from the perception of our own culture. So, what happens when someone is traveling to a different country to study at the university? Well, the situation is that that person, with all his or her beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts, has to confront with other people's beliefs, attitudes, etc. So both sides, local and international students, experience this shock, but obviously, right, at a different level. There are many characteristics affecting how a person, a student in this case, experiences the culture shock, but usually we divide it into two main areas. The first one will be the breadth of difference between the two cultures, and secondly, the individual's personality traits. So let's go with the first one. So when we talk about the breadth of difference between the two cultures, we are analyzing this cultural difference, how they feel, right? The home and the host culture. So the farther the cultural distance between the home and the host culture, the more likely is that an individual will feel discomfort and difficulty in social interactions. On the other hand, when we talk about the personality, the individual's personality traits, the student personality plays a role in how they react to new experiences. If they are willing to put themselves in awkward situations in order to learn about the new social rules. Research supports the idea that individuals with personality traits such as extroversion and consciousness are likely to adjust more easily to new cultures. So we need to understand, we should understand that the process of adaptation might be long, as it includes few stages. The first one is the one called the honeymoon stage. At this stage, the student during this period feels fascinated with the new environment. The student feels euphoric, energetic, and enthusiastic. Everything seems fantastic, and the differences between the home and host culture are hardly perceived. This honeymoon stage might last from very few days or weeks up to 6 months, depending on circumstances. Unfortunately, this mentality doesn't remain when the student has to cope with real life condition. And then the second stage begins, which is called the rejection one. The student at this stage is exposed to bureaucratic problems, language barriers, house travel, transportation travel, shopping travel, etc. The differences between the two cultures are evident now. And frequently, in this kind of comparison, ethnocentrism leads the student to blame the host culture for all these problems the student is suffering. The student perceives that people in the host country are indifferent to all this trouble, and as a result, he or she performs an aggressive and hostile attitude to them. So, how can the student arrive to the third stage, the adjustment, or also called negotiation stage? Well, really being aware of cultural differences and making the effort to understand and accept other ways of living and thinking. Right? The host culture is not bad by itself. It just has to be interpreted in a different way. Usually, learning the language of the host country is one of the first recommendations to overcome the cultural shock. Language is one of the visible elements of culture. So the sooner the student is able to communicate, the sooner this cultural shock will disappear. Now, focusing at the classroom aspects, unfortunately, stereotypes is one of the main problems we still have to deal with in the classroom. Sometimes the visitor takes a superior attitude toward people, regardless students or even professors. And this is affecting the interactions or relationship during his or her stay. Other factors that are showing these cultural differences within the classroom are, firstly, the learning approach. So some educational systems encourage the analytical thinking, while others encourage the memorization. So this might result in difficulties for the professors to handle both perspectives. Another issue is individualism versus teamwork. This might result in problems with the activities to be developed throughout the course. Some students might reject working in groups when they think that they can obtain higher grades by working on their own. Another important point, is the participation in class. Again, some educational systems encourage intensely the participation in class, the student participation in class, but others are more conservative and traditional in this sense, and students are there absorbing information. They don't ask questions, they don't participate in the activities. I mean, they don't participate voluntarily in these activities. In this case, the role of the professors is to force students to participate, which is quite awkward, to be honest. Another factor is what I call the sense of contract. For deal-focused cultures, the contract is the most important aspect of the relationship of the business, let's say. In this case, the role of the contract is played by the syllabus, right, within the classroom. So for deal-focused countries, or for students coming from deal-focused countries, the syllabus has to be followed strictly. However, other cultures that are not so focused on the deal, not so focused on the contract, and then not so focused on the syllabus, are more flexible in this matter, and they understand that there might be modifications and last-minute changes. Another factor will be the time conception. For polychronic cultures, time is a very flexible concept, while for monochronic cultures, it is a rigid one. Time is money, so there's we cannot waste time, right? In a monochronic culture, time cannot be wasted. So this shock between polychronic and monochronic culture affects punctuality, deadlines, or even interruption, the view of an or the perception of an interruption in class. Let's say when the student is getting out of the classroom to go to the toilet, to go to the toilet, to make a phone call, whatever. Other aspects that also make the interaction in class more difficult are, firstly, the composition of working teams in class. Sometimes students decide grouping by nationalities or by gender. They don't want to mix with other students from other nationalities or different gender. Right? Another issue is the setting of rules in class. Some aspects like wearing a cap or eating in the classroom, they are usually or might be source of conflicts. For instance, in Spain, it's not allowed to eat in the classroom, while it is perfectly possible to make it in other countries. Regarding my attitude, think again about my opinion on that, how I deal with all these situations. I try to, or I put a special emphasis on cultural awareness and communication strategies in the classroom. My objective is to make students aware of these differences, but in a practical way. Some of these practices I carry out in the classroom are, firstly, proposing exercises about stereotypes.
We have a technical problem with the presentation now. So that's also one of the rule of the game when we communicate remotely this way. The thing is that after the webinar, you will be given access to the recordings. Some people are asking for some notes rather than the video that we saw. All the elements dealing with the content of the presentations made this morning will be available on the site of the project afterwards. So since we have apparently the possibility to see the end of the presentation, I'm giving the word back to our speaker.
Practices I carry out in the classroom are, firstly, proposing exercises about stereotypes with the aim of students being aware of their ethnocentrism. Then mixing nationalities and genders in teamwork, and also moderating debates and activities in class in which people have to defend a position that is opposite to their own beliefs. Anyway, I don't want to take more time on talking about the activities to be developed in the classroom, as I know one of my colleagues will be explaining this topic extensively in this seminar. Just to conclude, I recommend transparency and honesty in a multicultural class. It doesn't mean that us as professors have to say what the student wants to hear. Right? Like we must be direct. Communication with the student has to be direct. I would say this kind of a straightforward style, and avoiding the roundabout style that is that common in Latin-derived languages. So we must be direct, straightforward style, following this kind of a straightforward style, but politically correct. That's necessary. Finally, well, I know that these are proposals, and I know that I'm conscious that professors work to overcome cultural misunderstandings in class. It's not always possible in all circumstances, groups and courses, but if so, we should try. In my opinion, our aim as professors should be to lead the understanding of other cultures and points of view, to create bridges between cultures and reduce the shock, and to discover what aspects of our culture need to be transmitted in the classroom. I think that this might be our contribution as professors to this challenging global society.